What's up, guys? Trevor Hunter here with Dirt Bike Test. Today we're riding something pretty unique. It started out as a KTM Freeride electric bike, and Andy here from Dirt First Racing has turned it into a full-blown Supermini race bike. So Andy, tell us about what kind of brought you to this point and how you got here.
Well, I've always had an interest in electric bikes. I've been following it for years, and there's never been a bike that's really competitive until recently. And I was checking out like Zeros and Altas, and never really pulled the trigger on one of those. And then for my wife, I got a Freeride EXC a couple of years ago, and she's 5'2", 130 pounds, so it was a little tall for her. So instead of lowering the suspension internally, I decided to just put smaller wheels on it, 19-inch, 16-inch wheels, and it was perfect for her. And I kind of went from there, and I started setting the bike up for her to race, and then I had kids racing it in motocross and cross-country races.
Cool. So what were some of the struggles or just the development process to get it from the production bike to the small wheels to then building it into a race-ready Supermini?
Yeah, the wheel swap was really easy because the hubs are 85SX, KTM 85SX, so the wheels are really easy. The gearing took a little time to get dialed in, and we change it for every different track is pretty much a different set of sprockets, so that was a big thing. And then it was just setting up ergos. The standard forks, the Explorer forks, are a little soft and don't have much adjustability, so we use the air forks off the 85SX. In addition to having better valving and working better on the motocross track, they're easily adjustable too, and lighter. They're about 2.5 pounds lighter than the Explorer fork. And this bike is overweight to begin with, so any place I could save weight on it was a good thing.
Yeah, how about the motor? I mean, obviously electric stuff, it's kind of still newer technology, especially in the off-road motorcycle world. Have you made any modifications to it just so the battery lasts longer, get more power out of it? What's going on there?
The battery, motor, and controller are completely stock. There's no modifications whatsoever, and I don't know of any way of modifying it. So it's almost like a spec class kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have people emailing me from Austria asking me if I can flash their controller on their Freeride. So nobody really knows how to do it.
Yeah.
So the drivetrain's completely stock.
What's the kind of, you've been testing with faster Supermini kids, what's their range on a motocross track? How long can they go on a single battery charge?
The most recent test we did was at Fox Raceway on the vet track. Just ran out a battery all the way, and it was almost 30 minutes, 29 minutes at race speed on the vet track.
That's pretty competitive for most amateur nationals. I think Loretta's was the longest at about 20 minutes, 22 minutes. So it probably, for the most riders, comfortably make that 20-minute moto mark.
Yeah, and here at Glen Helen on the main track, we've done 2 5-lap motos on one battery.
Cool. All right. Well, we it's something unique, something we haven't tried before. We have Jett, one of our Supermini testers out here. I'm going to hope to do a couple laps on the bike myself just to get a feel for it, and we're looking forward to something else and see how this thing works. Alright, that's a wrap. We're done riding this KTM Freeride Supermini build by Dirt First Racing. Gotta say, I was pretty intrigued by this bike. Nothing like I've ever really seen before. Obviously, I've seen the Freeride. I kind of looked at it as more of a trail bike, and just kind of a play bike, maybe a trials kind of bike, but never thought it would ever be built into like a serious racer type bike. And I'd say Dirt First did a pretty good job with it. Obviously it's got the Supermini wheels, so it's a little smaller. I kind of squeak into that height range. A little heavy for it, but the height I get by to put a few laps in it. And then we had Jett here, who's a National Hare and Hound champion, Big Six, NGPC racer, Western Scrambles. Kid does it all on a 85 and Supermini. So Jett, let's start with you. How does this bike compare to your regular 85?
The bike was great. I had a lot of fun today. So it definitely, when I first hopped on the bike, I noticed it was a lot longer than my 85s and Supermini. The handlebars are a little bit more forward. There's more space between the seat and the handlebars. So I am reaching forward a bit. The power, the bottom end, the bottom range, or the low range, it takes a while to pick up, but once you get to the top end, it really rips.
Yeah, no, I'd say kind of just back up everything he said. It's definitely, it's Supermini wheels and everything, and kind of Supermini height, maybe slightly taller than a regular Supermini. Definitely feels a lot longer and a little more open and less compact than the Supermini does, and it was actually quite stable for what it was. And I feel like on the Supermini, the wheelbase feels shorter and everything kind of feels like it's underneath you more. Whereas this felt a little more open, a little more stable, more like a bigger bike, which was for myself is much welcome change. Kind of going to the motor, the electric power. There's just the slightest hesitation off the bottom. And kind of once you learned how to ride it and kind of learned what to expect, actually got really comfortable and really liked the power. You kind of had to open the throttle a little quicker and a little more in their corners, and it pull you through really nice. And I haven't ridden a Mini in a while, but just comparing to a bigger bike, just the slightest hesitation. And obviously this kind of motor probably isn't suited for my weight range. I'm like 160 pounds, so it's more of a 110 to maybe 130 pound range bike. So that has something to do with it too, I think, at least for myself. But kind of Jett said the same thing. It's just the slightest hesitation. But other than that, the motor is really good. It's got that electric power band, super linear, super smooth. It actually pulls really hard from mid to top. Pulled up the hills really well. Never really broke traction. Never spin out or anything like that. It was always hooked up. Always got traction. And it didn't feel all that fast, but I felt like we were going a pretty good speed with this bike.
Yeah, with the size and the height of the bike, the foot pegs do sit pretty deep, pretty low. I feel like on my 85s and Supermini, the foot pegs are a little bit higher up, so I'm kind of gripping with my shins and my legs. But when I hopped on this bike, I got that more quad kind of knee. It just allowed for a lot more grip with my knees and thighs. So that was definitely a lot more safer in my opinion. Than having less grip. But yeah, there is no clutch, no shifter. In my opinion, actually, when I'm riding, I always like to keep 2 fingers on the clutch. This bike, I had all 5 fingers wrapped around the handlebars. A lot safer, a lot more in control. Yeah, with the Power 2, even though it does lack a little bit on the bottom end, if this bike got some torque, it could definitely be a competitor.
The lack of a clutch and the lack of a shifter definitely threw me off, especially coming to the very first turn. I went to shift down and kind of pull the clutch in, and there's nothing there. So that took a little bit to get used to, but once you got used to it, it was much better. You never have to thought about, you always leave your foot on the balls of your feet on the peg. You never have to reach for the clutch lever. You never shift or anything. You can get in place and kind of stay there, which I thought was really cool. It's just less to think about and easier to ride. And yeah, overall it was really good. Suspension for me, obviously really soft, but for what it is, and coming from a Freeride EXC where it's more of a beginner, novice, trail-friendly bike, not really like a motocross bike, I thought it worked really well for these KTM 85 air forks and then just a stock revalved shock out back.
Yeah, the suspension was pretty stiff for me. I definitely, it's pretty quiet. I was out there talking with some people on the track almost. But yeah, it's pretty quiet. So when I'm going through the braking bumps and the rollers and the jumps, you definitely hear almost like smacking. hitting all the rough stuff, but I just think that's because there's no sound. Suspension was pretty stiff. I enjoyed it. It handled pretty well. My personal 85s and Supermini, I always like my suspension more plush, a little bit softer, but yeah, the stiff suspension on this bike felt great. The weight of the bike, they said it was in the 200s, but I kind of felt like it was lighter than that. Through the air, when I'm in the air off a jump, I just have so much like more movement. Like I cannot whip my personal bikes at all, but I was like throwing this bike around a lot more comfortable and easier to ride.
Now they said the bike weighs right around 230 pounds, which is like the equivalent to a 250F, and to me on the track it feels like it's 130 pounds. It's like night and day how light it feels compared to any other bike I've ridden, really, because I don't have any electric bike experience. Everyone says kind of the lack of engine parts and the no inertia in the engine, that's what kind of creates that heavy feeling. And with no moving parts inside an engine, the bike feels super light, super nimble. You can put it where you want, you can move it around. It's crazy how light this bike feels for how heavy it is, especially being a mini bike and being as heavy as it is. You would never guess the scale weight of it riding it. Kind of just wrap it all up. It's a really impressive bike. I did a moto myself on the Glen Helen main track. Pretty fast, pretty deep. Just kind of holding it wide open almost everywhere. Fifth gear around the outside if I could. I got the battery. Right around the 23 minute mark, the battery started going under 20%, which when it gets below that, it'll go into a limp mode kind of quick. So right around the 23 minute mark is when I pulled off, and the bike never really lost power or anything like that. It just, the light started flashing. I knew it'd go into limp mode pretty quick. I didn't even get stuck out on the track. As cool as Dirt First Racing, they put a coolant temperature gauge on here, so you can see kind of how hot the bike's running. And for me, when I pulled off the track, I was like right around 110 degrees for the coolant temp. He said right around 130 degrees is when the bike will go into limp mode. And so they actually have external fans mounted to the radiators to help cooling on a kind of a hotter day. Today's pretty cool out, so the bike wouldn't get as hot. But those fans and everything, they're connected to a separate battery from the bike battery. So if you do turn them on, it's not taking away power or kind of time from the bike's battery. It's taking it from a separate battery, which is cool because you don't have to worry about kind of shortening your ride due to running these fans. Yeah, overall, really impressive bike. I was blown away. I thought it'd be a cool bike to ride, but I really wasn't expecting it to be as fun as it was and as capable as it was. But overall, I had a blast. Would I spend? I think it's right around $15,000 to $20,000 for this package, kind of custom built from Dirt First Racing. That'd be a tough buy, especially for someone like me. But I think it's cool. It shows what the future looks like, especially for KTM. They have the 50 electric bikes. I think they have the 65 electric bikes. So the 85s and the Superminis are going to be the next one up to have an electric option. And I think it's pretty cool that kind of guys like Dirt First Racing are taking this head on, doing it on their own, kind of pioneering this whole project and idea. And it's cool is on this bike specifically, you can change a battery in 30 seconds. So they've done some off-road races, some Hare and Hound, some Grand Prix that last up to 2 hours at a time, and they can swap a battery in about 30 seconds, which isn't much longer than filling up gas for one of those races. And obviously you have to change batteries more often than you fill up the gas, but it's pretty cool that it's still accessible to do that kind of stuff. Or if you're just a motocross racer, you could easily do any moto out there and never have to worry about the battery dying on you while you're on the track. So overall, really impressive day, cool opportunity. Thanks to Dirt First Racing for having us out and trying out this electric Supermini. And yeah, stay tuned to Dirt Bike Test for more on this and all of our future projects and anything two wheels related. So we'll see you out in the trails.